You are now listening to Ride With Me, the Flat Tire Podcast.
Welcome to Ride With Me, episode 90, March. Today is March 5th, 2023, and my guest again is Marlena with her chapter 2. Marlena.
Hey, Andy. How are you? It's been a week. How are you doing?
I'm good. My week actually started a little horrible, but I'm good. I'm alive. I'm breathing. I am back in my garage. But
Hey, well, I'm back in my garage too, and I really appreciate you having me on last week and then having me again for this week. And I came in here because I wanted just to be like, yo, I saw your garage door and I felt like I needed to.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Officer Ricky is a little jealous that you're back to back and he's not on, but too bad. He's not here.
I can't wait to meet Officer Ricky.
Yeah, he's I do bring him up a lot because he is someone that I talk to a lot, and he does give me his point of views, and I can vent to him. And somebody asked me yesterday, how do you deal with so much BS? And I did respond with, I have Officer Ricky, someone to vent to that is not biologically related or like blood, he's not a sibling to the person that I want to vent about. So if it wasn't for Officer Ricky, I probably would have shot myself already.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Dang. Officer Ricky not only makes wellness calls on your birthday, he also saves your life. Yeah. Man, I need to meet this Officer Ricky.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll listen to this and he'll be like, you know what, now BS, I gotta be on this. He likes the attention, so.
Oh shoot! Well, come on, we're gonna give you all the attention you want, and you deserve, Mr. Ricky.
No, but back to my week. It did start off a little horrible. So on Sunday, my son was like, hey, Dad, the iPad's not working. And we don't own iPads. The only iPad and iPhone that I own are company-issued phones or an iPad. But we have an iPad that my wife only uses to FaceTime her family because everyone has an iPhone except for myself, my wife, and Officer Ricky. Everyone else has an iPhone. So my son's like, Dad, the iPad is not working. The FaceTime's not working. I'm like, it's all right, mijo, I'll fix it. I'll figure it out. I'll call Apple support and I'll get it going. So the next morning, which would have been Monday, I Googled Apple support. Remember, I Googled Apple support. I got a phone number from Google that I called. And so I called it and I said, hey, this, and they answered Apple support. And I'm like, this is what's going on. So I was locked out on my iPad. I can't make any phone calls or whatever, like the FaceTime, nothing. Can you please help me out? Yeah, sure. Let me figure it out. Boom, boom. What's your email address? So I gave the email address that I use. Okay, cool. So you can hear him typing, the typical BS, right? And and he's okay, cool. So we see on your records that someone tried to make fraudulent purchases, and I was like, really? That's crazy. He goes, yeah, so somebody was trying to buy certain things, blah, blah, blah. So can we get remote access to your phone? Which, again, it has happened before. I have done this before. So I was like, I thought nothing of it. Yeah, no problem. So we logged into my, I gave him permission. We downloaded the app, got permission. And at the same time, I'm doing the iPad thing while I'm working. So my mind is halfway here, halfway there. And he's like, yeah, let's, so I'm going to send you a couple cents to your bank account. Can you verify that number? And I was like, yeah. So, but the beautiful thing is that for everything, I use my thumbprint. So I used my thumbprint to log in. There was nothing there. I'm like, no, sir, there's nothing here. There's no cents, nothing that came in. And he's like, okay, I'm going to do it again, but log out. So I swiped the app off. That's the way I logged off. And he was like, no. You have to physically log out, like hit the log out. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Again, logged in using my fingerprint. And I physically logged out. He goes, okay, now log back in. Again, fingerprint, logged back in. So I figured out that he wasn't going to get shit out of my bank account because he wasn't going to get my password because I was using my thumbprint. Right?
Yeah.
So he was like, well, it's not there yet. And out of nowhere, I start seeing my phone move. And it's, like I said, half the time I'm working and I'm doing this. And I start seeing my phone move, went to my Zelle part of the app. And money got transferred to an account. Before I can respond no to my bank, he already had responded yes because he had full access to my phone. And I was like, what the hell? No, you need to put that back, bro. You need to put that back. Oh, it's just a test. It was just a run. Bro, but 1,200? You need to test that with 1,200? Now, again, I didn't think anything of it because I Googled the number. And in my, nah, bro, you need to put that back. So he's like, here's a code and everything, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, you need to put that back. And the moment that once he saw that I was getting a little hostile and I called him a thief,
yeah,
call dropped.
Yeah,
the call dropped. So I called them back. And then I'm like, hey, dude, whoever was on the phone just a few minutes ago, he robbed me. And the guy on the phone's like, no, that was a mistake. Well, blah, 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 blah. So after a 28-minute conversation, I figured out that this guy was only going to make me get my money back. I was going to get my money back, but I had to go through hoops. You got to go to the store and you got to buy this prepaid card and blah, 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 blah. All this fucking bullshit. And I was like, nah. I'm like, you know what, sir? I'm calling the police and I'm calling the bank for fraudulent. No, we got you. So when I was on the phone with him, he sends me a text message stating that they were going to reimburse me the money and that and it said Apple support and everything. And but by then I was like, nope, I am not dealing with this BS. So I hung up on him and I called the bank and I spoke to the bank and I told them everything that happened. I sent them screenshots. I sent the screenshots that they sent me that they were going to reimburse my money. Everything. So the bank said it was going to take them about 10 days, but my brother's like, BS, you need to bug them until they're like, no, they're going to give you your money back. So, because even though it looked like it physically came from my phone, it wasn't me in control.
That's crazy.
I was pissed. I was pissed.
I feel you. Like during COVID, remember everybody was locked down, nobody was going anywhere.
Yeah.
So similar story happened to my husband, and they said that somebody was trying to take money out of his account, and it was a fraudulent account. It wasn't like Apple. You said you had a device that you actually called support for. This wasn't like that. Somebody had sent him a message, said that they were taking some money out of the account, and then when he called the number on the back of his card, he got into that situation and somebody ended up taking, I think, $500 out of his account in that process. Well, I was talking, I was like, babe, that doesn't sound right. But he within 5 minutes called our bank and our bank was like, dude, somebody literally they were using the bank's phone number and transferring the call. You remember how you could forward a phone number back in the day, have it ring to your cell phone, like a landline to your cell phone?
Yeah. Somebody
was intercepting phone calls from the back of that phone call from that number and was going straight to there and doing this. And they were using Zelle. It's crazy that you said that because it was Zelle. Wells Fargo reimbursed my husband all of his money. It took him 7 working business days, but immediately they put a stop to it. They changed his bank account. They gave him new debit cards. But yeah, that guy was just in there too, flipping through his phone. Jeff's I said his name. My husband was like, it's happening so fast. It's and I can't believe it happened to me. He is because we weren't going anywhere. And for something to happen like that, all that time we were using our credit cards, for Amazon Fresh and deliveries like that. And we were, our credit card was on there. And now my husband will not put his credit card or save it to his phone or even Zelle. I call my account a flow through account. So if I need money, he controls, we talked about this, it's a partnership, so he controls everything. I don't talk dollar signs or money, nothing.
Right.
If I need something, I ask him, and I have what I call a flow through account. So we use that account for anything we purchase online. So if I want to buy something, I make sure if it's $15, it's only gonna be $15 in that account to cover whatever that is. And that's just for something like that. So I don't want nobody taking all of our money out.
I feel he had no choice but to rob me there and then because I wasn't physically typing in my password, so he couldn't write it down. I was using my thumbprint.
It was his only choice.
Exactly.
And yesterday, I don't know if you saw my TikTok yesterday, but yesterday I was blocking somebody. Huh?
The 99 cents?
Yeah, the 99 cents. Yes, I was blocking somebody. And on Apple Pay, because you're talking about Apple device, I just got Apple phone. Everybody has it. My family's like, oh, you should get it, blah, blah. So I got it, switched from Android. So I'm still learning all of it. I'm still learning about Apple Pay, Apple Wallet. and on you can set it up to where you have to double click the side with your thumb to accept a payment. It'll show your credit card. It does this whole process. I would up in the right hand corner of a message, it said block, and I blocked the guy, and Apple, said TikTok charged you 99 cents. And I was like, wait a minute. So like, I don't think that TikTok charged me. And now I'm looking back and I'm like, I keep looking back at my bank. I'm like, it still says Apple Pay. It still says Apple Pay 99 cents pending processing. So I wonder if the guy that was messaging me is a scammer, because he started, that's why I blocked him, because he was like, hey, pretty lady. And right there. And then I'm like, meh. And then I was like, oh, you're one of those. And then I just was immediately going to block it. And then it came, are you single? Are you married? How many kids? And I was like, this guy is like trying to, be one of those scammers. So I went up there to block him almost immediately. And then like that whole happened. And I was just like, I wonder if that's how they're doing it too, like through accounts like that.
It's crazy how smart they've gotten. My brother, he went to school for computers. So after everything went down, after I called the bank and everything, I called him and I told him what happened. And he's like, because my wife was worried that they might have left like malware in my phone and being able to access everything. So I called my brother and I told him what happened. He's like, no, the only way they can get access to your phone is if you give them permission again. You obviously learn not to give them anybody permission again. So you're good. You're fine. So don't worry about that. And then I told him about like maybe a malware's. He goes, you can run a malware, antivirus thing through your phone, but that's not how they got through you. They got through you through an app. So he goes, no, you're good to go. He told me that that they are people that have gotten really smart about like. So like I told him, I didn't suspect anything because I Googled the number. So he said, yeah, they're very smart where they'll create a web page that looks exactly like the original web page. Like if you Google Apple support, the page is going to come up looking like it's really Apple support. How did that come across instead of the real one? I'll never know. But yeah, they're really smart at doing stuff like that. He also said that they do the websites, and like I told him about like the phone calls. I can tell when the phone call is scam because my phone will automatically say spam, so I won't answer it. Then I'll get text messages from random numbers that I already caught on who they are. So I got a text message the other day, hey, I have your number in my phone book, but I have no contact or no history. Who is this?
Yeah, I get those a lot too.
So I responded back with, I don't know anybody in the 310 area code. And they're like, oh, well, this is so-and-so, and here's a picture of me. And they sent me a picture. And I'm not going to lie, it was a cute little Asian girl. I was like, wow, pretty lady, right? Or a 60-year-old dude, but the photo was a pretty lady. I'm not going to lie. But then I responded back with, and let me guess, you work for finances, you make a lot of money, and you're fucking rich. They stopped responding.
I get the opposite type of stuff. I always get like, oh, it's funny because anytime anybody always scams, I do answer and I mess around with them. Sometimes I'll pretend like I'm Domino. Sometimes I'll pretend like I'm the FBI. But I'll start playing around with them if it's a scammer. And my daughter loves it. But when it comes to like messages, like somebody drops a message out of nowhere, I always am very cautious or mindful of who I give my number to, So when I get a lot of people, I'm like, first of all, who is this? Or I may ask who is, I may not have written your number. I have this one girl, she was like, you don't know who I am? And I'm like, no. She's like, but you gave me your phone number. And I'm like, okay. I said, but I would have remembered that. And she's like, okay. And she just skips the whole like introduction. Like, I'm trying to find out who you are. She's like, well, are you having a good day? Like, can we be friends? I was like, wait a minute. I was like, do I know you? Yeah, you do know me. And I'm like, but if I knew you, you'd be giving me your name now, and you're not giving me your name. And I'm finding out, sometimes I like to really, or I'll play with them because I get them all the time. I'll see a number. Hey, how are you doing? So-and-so. I'll tell them, well, you have the wrong number.
Yeah.
Oh, I do. I'm saying, and I'll say, well, maybe that person just wasn't the person for you. Or I'll be like, or that person didn't really like you because they gave you my number.
Yeah.
Because then they'll really try I get them all the time. I'm like, when I tell you I get them at least once a week, I wouldn't be lying to you.
Yeah.
And it's become so common that I just play around with them.
Yeah.
And I joke back with them. And if I hurt anybody's feelings, if anybody's out there that's heard that I've done that, I've done that too, and you know who I am.
like I
I'm
said,
sorry you didn't give me your name back.
right at the end, like I said, at the end of the day, I know not to fall for them, but when I physically called them, that's why I suspected nothing. Up until my app
That's not
started
your
moving.
fault.
Once my app started moving around, and I'm like, no, and before I could even stop the text message to go through, he already had responded yes, and $1,251 out of my bank account. He had the decency.
Did you get it back?
Huh?
You're going to get it back though, right?
I'm hoping. He did have the decency to leave me $50 for gas money, so that I give him a thank you. Left me some kind of gas money. I told my wife the beautiful thing is that the day before I had just pulled out the rent money. Yeah. I had just pulled out the rent money, so he didn't take. He just took my state taxes. That's what he took. So,
well, I hope that your bank gives it back to you and saw immediately that it was fraudulent, because they have a fraud department for that. And usually, like I said, we got it back within like 3 days. I think it wasn't that much. It was only like $500. So hopefully, like whoever you bank with covers that. Because they're usually pretty good.
And I called them multiple times, and they're like, "You've been banking with us for 12 years. Well, you're a good, loyal customer."
Yeah.
And everybody rags on, I'm gonna say it, Bank of America. And like I
have Bank of America.
And like I tell them, they have bad publicity. They have bad experiences. I have never had a bad experience. Like, yes, this happened, but that was my fault. Like, that wasn't something that bank did. That was a call that I made and got robbed. So it is what it is, man. That's enough of the whole being robbed BS. But any Cowboys updates? You're my Cowboy update.
Oh my God, I'm just sitting back because we just got a new kicker, and I want to see what they're gonna let. I call him Maher, but Maher. I still can't even say his name. Like, that's one name that I can't say to save my life. I'm really upset, but I was hoping to see somebody new in our on the field for as far as our kickers goes. But no, nothing new, nothing exciting to talk about, because as far as right now, everything's kind of staying steady.
What are your feelings? What are your feelings on Elliott? Like,
on Elliott,
people are saying that he is not worth.
It's the curse of Elliott. It's the curse of Zeke, dude. It's the curse of Zeke. I always say it. I honestly would. I'd rather not see Zeke on our team anymore.
Okay,
if I have to say it.
There's your feeling. There's exactly. I just think that Pollard. I feel that Pollard does most of the work, and then
Pollard does a lot
Zeke
of
is just to score a touchdown. Like, really, like.
He's only there for $, I think, and he, and I get it. Everybody always talks about how at first you have to run the ball a little bit before you can, pass the ball. And they talk about Dak not being the quarterback he was in college, and he doesn't run. Well, that's got a lot to do with a lot of Jerry and all of them telling him, "You're the quarterback, stick here. You have other people to do their job. Let them do their job. Give Zeke the ball to carry it as far as he needs to carry it." It's the same play over and over and again. It's washed out. Zeke, I think, is kind of worn out a little bit too. He might be young, but that doesn't mean anything in the brain.
Yeah.
I think once your mentality of I'm the best, and I think that's kind of where Zeke's at in his brain. And I say it. He's the only one on our team that I think gives me a headache. Is I think it's a curse of Zeke. I think that's why.
Yeah.
I really do.
I mean, if you're only going to keep someone around to score a touchdown instead of making yards, then you should probably let him go.
He really hasn't been doing much of that either. So it's all about his paycheck.
Yeah,
it's all about him having a contract.
I believe he did score touchdowns in 7 straight games, but then when we needed them the most, nada.
Well, I like Pollard. I think Pollard should be given a lot of opportunities, but he's only there he's got a job to do too. And like I said, when you go do a job, whenever you have a job and it's a specific job at a company and your boss says, "Oh, tell Andy to do the job because, he's trained for that position," but Marlena knows the exact same position and can probably do it a little bit better than Andy, but guess what? We're paying Andy for it.
Yeah, this is my podcast. This is my podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's your podcast. Make him do it. That's what I'm saying. That's how it is in football.
Yeah.
That's how it is in football. We're paying that guy to do a job. Let him do the job. He's being trained for that position. So it's what it is right now in the football world.
That's right. I mean, we'll wait. August is still a long time away. So
It is. I've been talking. So everybody's been talking about Kyrie Irving coming over to Dallas and the Mavs. I don't watch basketball, but I heard some dramas coming in since now we have two All-Stars on the same team. And then they're saying that these two All-Stars could butt head because I guess they did some pretty good. They went toe-to-toe this last game. Yeah. Like, they're scored toe-to-toe.
My son is not... We don't watch basketball. We don't.
I don't... Yeah.
And my son is LeBron James this, LeBron James that, LeBron James this. I'm, oh, yeah, LeBron James just got hurt and he won't play for like 2 months. He's like, well, he just beat the old-time scoring points, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, you don't even watch... You don't even watch... And this is where he got me. I thought he was... I know he was joking. I mean, you don't even watch basketball. He goes, I thought LeBron James was a golf player.
Oh, no. Oh my God. My kid was into basketball for a while, but, and he's always talking about somebody's got to get the new LeBrons and he still has a pair of LeBrons that we went and bought, I think like 4 years ago. Of course they don't fit under sit up in his closet. He never wore the things. I mean, they're ugly as F-U-C-K. I mean, they're ugly. They were the ugliest shoes I've ever seen. Yeah, but they were limited edition, and he had to have them because they said LeBron on them.
Yeah, like I said, we don't even watch basketball. And LeBron James this, LeBron James that. He reminds me of that little kid in what that movie's called? Bad Teacher? Is it Bad Teacher? Where the teacher the teacher is fighting with the student because the student's saying that LeBron James is better than Kobe Bryant, and the teacher is like, you're fighting with the 5-year-old dude.
Oh, Ava, who's better, Kobe or LeBron? That's a conversation. I'm not even. Don't touch that conversation.
So he was bragging on LeBron James. I'm like, oh yeah, Alexa, who has the most freaking NBA? Yeah, and then Michael Jordan. Who's the second? Kobe Bryant.
Kobe Bryant.
Dude, LeBron James is not. Bro, shut it, dude. Shut it with LeBron James.
If I know anything back in my day, I think it was like Scottie Pippen, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan. Those are the people. Shaquille O'Neal. Those are the people I remember growing up. Those are the people I like basketball. I don't know what basketball has become now. Whenever they were talking about all these different players, like, I didn't even know how to say Luka's last name. So I was like, the Doncic, and everyone's like, nah, just they say Luka, you'll be all right.
Yeah. So no, I tell my son I tell my son he needs to stick it. You know, shut it, kid. You don't know shit. You didn't watch sports, but. Anyways,
was that all the other sports y'all watch?
We only watch football. We only watch football.
Y'all y'all watch? Well, hey, we talked. Do you guys do wrestling? Watch wrestling?
Oh, I mean, wrestling. Wrestling. It's funny because I told my son, I got him into watching the old school WWF.
Yeah.
He always I've always quoted wrestlers, The Rock mainly, and then. My son, my boys are
the wrestlers, The Rock,
mainly The Rock, and he was telling me wrestling's fake, Dad. Wrestling's fake. I understand it's fake. I mean, but it's scripted. They're still getting hurt, and so I've been wanting to buy Peacock, and come Super Bowl Sunday, I bought Peacock because I believe my understanding was the Super Bowl was going to be on Peacock. So my wife's like, bullshit, you just need a reason to buy so you can watch the wrestling. So I started watching like when the NWO started to build up when they started. And then my son and I started, as a family, we were watching Young Rock. And my son is seeing all these wrestlers interact with The Rock, Hogan, the Giant, Macho Man, all these old school wrestlers. So I'm watching... the WWF episode. Well, I'm gonna call it episode when The Rock first started his very first WWF appearance. So my son is watching, and he's like, "Dad, I can get into this. I'll watch it with you as long as we're only watching from when The Rock started." So I'm all right, kid. All right, we can do that. So we're watching. I think we watched April 7th of '97's Raw, and it ended so good that my son's like, "Oh." They're hyping it up for WrestleMania 13. Dad, when's WrestleMania 13? So he wants to watch WrestleMania 13, which was supposed to be today. But he told me, Dad, can we do it tomorrow? So we're, like I said, he's all into it, and he says, I get it, Dad. I understand that wrestling is fake, but I understand why you liked it. It's very entertaining.
Yeah.
Mijo, that's why they changed it from the WWF to the WWE. World Wrestling Entertainment. It's just entertainment. And he's like, wow, Mijo, you go to school and you talk to your friends about what? Fortnite? And all these little roly-poly stuff that you guys watch? We used to go to school and we used to talk
about wrestling.
We used to go to school and talk about, did you see what The Rock did? Can you believe that? Can you Stone
Cold Steve Austin, Goldberg.
Stone Cold came out with a freaking milk truck. Like this is like
you remember that? Yeah, that was cool.
Freaking they threw cement in Vince McMahon's car. So he says, okay, Dad, I'll watch you with you until the Attitude Era ends. So that's what he wants to watch.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
I won't watch all this new stuff. It's not the same. I might watch this new WrestleMania now that I got Peacock because rumors have it The Rock might make an appearance. So
I heard that too. That's pretty cool though. Yeah, my kids were growing up for a long time. That's kind of what I was. My grandfather, that's how we kind of bonded with my grandfather, was with wrestling. So he'd come over, and we didn't have cable, but like whatever it came in through on cable on the weekends, he'd come in, he'd watch Las Luchas, or we'd watch whatever reruns, or go. My aunt, who did have cable, we'd go over there, and they used to live across the street from each other. So we'd go over there to my aunt's house. My grandpa would come over, he'd watch the wrestling. I mean, that's what you talk to, right? We come back on Monday. That's who you were talking about, was wrestling. Did you see what so and so did, or Sting, or the Ultimate Warrior?
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan. That was the shit, man. Those are the days.
Those days are the cool, especially when your grandpa's the one who wants you to watch it. Let's go,
dude. Yeah, that's how we bonded. He was that. That's exactly how we bonded with him, because he wasn't always there. See, I think last week we talked about my grandmother raising us. My grandfather was always there. They were divorced, and she actually married him twice.
Wow.
So he was always there. And even though they were divorced, he was always around. Like, he always brought breakfast or like groceries and stuff. And that was one thing. He didn't go to church, and he was a really strict guy. I think we talked last week too about how we were it was really crazy growing up. I don't know how it was whenever you were raised, or what it was like. But with me and my grandparents, it was always really strict. Like, even though I was raised with my grandpa was very much present, and we still listened to the rules or whatever he had to say. And I know that whenever my mom was raised, he was even he put his hands on them. He was an abusive person. So, but that's how we watched. Like, that was one thing that you could bond with. If it wasn't out there doing plumbing, it was sitting there watching some wrestling with them. And that was kind of fun with him.
Well, we lived with my grandma for about maybe I'm gonna say 2 years. 3 of my siblings did end up staying with her until she lived, pretty much until she passed. My brother Danny, my brother Junior, and my brother Albert, they were raised by her, but we lived with her. When I say we, me and my other brother, my brother Alex, we lived with her for about 2 years. And since my grandpa was a truck driver, he wasn't home as much. But when he was home, he was very strict.
Yeah,
very strict. It was like pretty much, grandpa's home. Let's calm down.
He was always, I know that my mom would tell me that he would come home and beat on my grandmother. He would beat them too. And there was a time where he just didn't care. I know he drank in his days. As far as did he do anything else, drugs? No, I think it was more of like beer and women for him. And but he was abusive. He'd come home and he'd beat up on my grandmother. My mom would see that. All my aunts and uncles would see him do that. And I think that's how they were that kind of goes into what we talked about. That was a norm for her to see. That was okay. It was acceptable. And I think that's how a lot of people are raised. And this is, if we get into my story, if we get into talking a little bit about it, I think that's kind of, nobody talks about what happened when they were growing up. And I think that takes effect on who we are today as individuals, right? And so she having to see that, she kind of accepted that that's how I guess people were supposed to be treated. And that kind of set a precedence to what the rest of her life would be, what my life would be in the future. What we came to accept as normal, as acceptable behavior from a man. And from my grandfather, that was real quick. He talked down, he was a womanizer. My uncles, I won't pride anybody of my uncles because I think there was probably I never really saw a really good male figure in my life. They were always talking, womenizers, you know. They're always teasing women. Just they never had nothing nice to say. And I think that's just kind of, it wasn't like bringing them flowers. Like I think now how what a guy should treat a girl is kindness. You look beautiful. You look nice today. Bring them flowers. You don't put your hands on them. That's not how they were raised. Nobody was bringing them flowers. And if my grandpa certainly wasn't doing that to my grandmother, he was bringing her food. But I never saw any kindness. And I'm sure my mom didn't see it either. And I didn't experience much kindness from him other than I knew that he was providing food. He was putting food on the table for us sometimes.
My like I said, I didn't live with my I lived with my grandparents, but like I said, my grandpa was a trucker, so he was hardly ever home. I never saw him. I don't think he ever laid a hand on my grandmother, and he wasn't the abusive when it came towards her. But I mean, from the stories that I hear, from the few stories that my grandmother told me. And then the stories that my mother told me was that he did beat down on them. He was a little too hard on them. And that's why I made that comment to my mom the last time I spoke to her. I was like, so because he was mean to you, you took it out on us. You decided to take it out on us. So, no, he was never. I mean, I broke a window once and he just ripped me a new one. And then he was really good at lecturing me, for example. Like one time, it was my brother Danny's birthday. He was turning 2, I believe, 2 or 3, and we were having a birthday party. And it's actually on the VHS tape. I need to get a VCR where I'm trying to help my brother open his gift, and my grandpa kind of like, hey, like smacks my hand. I think he smacks my hand, and he's like, oh. And I remember like getting hurt that I went outside and I was climbing like on this ladder and just sat there, and I just wanted to, like, it was right here. I wanted to cry, But I still remember that, and I was like maybe back in 1990, maybe 91, and but he was never abusive. Like I said, I broke a window and he ripped me a new one. My cousin one day told my grandparents, oh, Andy wasn't very helpful when it came to the kids. We went to watch the Ninja Turtle movies back in when the first one when it came out in theater. A cousin of mine took me and Alex and another brother to go watch the movie, and she came back stating that I was not very helpful and stuff. So he believed it. I got ripped a new one, but at the end he still gave me one of those headsets that have the radio on it, so I can listen to music. So he maybe if it's true that he was always beating on his kids, he didn't do that to me. So maybe he learned, because his son did pass away, and my uncle passed away in 88, and my grandmother did always tell him like, oh, now you're crying for him. Now my grandma was really a strong woman that she didn't even cry at her own son's funeral. And
my grandma was very strong like that. She was very a God-fearing woman. And my grandfather did put one time. You say that he gave you a lecture for breaking a window. Yours did. My grandfather, I remember we talked about me going to church all the time, and my grandmother expected me to put my dress, I had to be in a dress on church. We went to church on Wednesdays, Saturdays, Sundays. We were in church all the time. And he came over, like I said, he was always there eating. So he was there for breakfast. He was there for lunch. She'd always have lunch for him. Even if they were divorced, he was always there. Dinner, he was there. Even if it was before church, he'd make sure he'd get there to eat something. And one particular Sunday, it wasn't a Sunday, I'm sorry, it was a Wednesday, like Wednesday service. And we were getting ready for church, and we were playing Chinese checkers. You ever played that game before with the marbles?
I was just yeah. My wife's grandmother used to play that a lot. She was a cheater, but she played it a lot with the kids. She cheated.
Yeah. My grandma loved Chinese checkers. In fact, all of our family loved board games. We always loved it. So we're always playing something, before church or hanging out, singing, whatever we were doing. And that particular evening, we were playing a game of Chinese checkers, and we had one of those where you had all the games in one, So like you had chess and all that, whatever. So we're playing Chinese checkers. We're halfway through the game. The board was still set up. Marbles were still on it. And it was time to get to church. It was 6:00, about time to get to church. And my grandma says, okay, ya estamos listos, ya es tiempo, recoge todo eso y vamos a para la iglesia. So we all got our things together. We're getting ready for church, but I didn't want to put the game away because I was winning. So I was like, Grandma, can I just leave it here? You know, like, can we just leave it here? And my grandma was like, she was not frustrated, but no, te digo que vamos a ir, estamos tarde, ya vamos a estar tarde. And I was just like, okay. And my grandpa happened to come in at that moment and was not having it.
Oh.
And he got up, he says, you know, ¿qué te dijo? ¿Qué te dijeron? ¿Qué te dijeron? I got up and I said, I'm shaking. And he backhanded me so hard that the marbles went flying, and I went flying into the closet, and I had this huge mark on my face. And my grandma was like, por Dios, ¿qué estás haciendo, Benito? ¿Qué estás haciendo? And I just didn't know what to say in a state of shock. That was the first time somebody really put their hands down on me. Like, my grandma would, like, spank you on the bottom. I got, like, a spanking when I was a little kid. But to get hit physically by somebody that bad, my grandfather did it to me. He whacked me down so hard. And that was the beginning of, like, didn't want to, and I was telling you the other day, I never wanted to do anything to disrespect my grandmother. I never wanted them to be ashamed of me. I think that was the word I was looking for, is ashamed. So I didn't want her to be, if she said go to church, I was in church. After that moment of getting hit like that, I decided that, and I was probably about 8 years old, 8 or 9 years old,
right,
when that happened. And I said, you know what? From now on, I'm going to obey. I'm going to obey.
Hey, did somebody say Chinese checkers? No.
Yeah.
No.
No. And I'm like,
PTSD.
It's funny. For real. Because, like, Chinese checkers invokes that memory. Yeah. I mean, it invokes it. We could talk about all the good things he did in my life, showing up with food, but I was always respectful at that point. I never did anything to want to ever have them, be ashamed of me in either one of their eyes, like my grandfather's eyes, my grandmother's eyes. I never wanted to lie. I never wanted to make up stories, because I saw that wasn't good. Like, I see them talking about it, and it just wasn't cool.
Right.
And the way to bond with my grandfather was to eat with him biscuits and molasses. Yeah. He loved biscuits and syrup, or tortillas. Grandma always had fresh tortillas going, but to watch wrestling. That was the bonding thing. And as we got older, later on, he taught us, like, remember I told you I learned how plumbing?
Right.
He used to say, shit is dinero. Mierda es dinero. He's like, nobody wants to go do that,
But it pays the bills.
That's right. He said, I'm going to do the work that nobody wants to do. And that's what I learned. But I also knew the kind of man he was.
Yeah.
Like, I also knew the type of person he was.
My grandpa wasn't into, not that I recall, he wasn't into wrestling, but he did show us the greatest movies on earth. Back to the Future.
My husband loves that. He can quote that.
Star Wars. Yeah. He would always have, there was always a movie in the background when he was home. And I remember watching Star Wars, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? Well, whatever. He likes watching it. Let's watch it. And he was always into. He was more like, to me, at one point, few points. He was a teacher to me. Sorry, woo, that came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I like that hoodie. I just saw it's a
it has my last name on the back, and the year I was born. It was a Christmas gift.
I like it.
Thank you. We went to the hospital because I think my brother was sick, so my grandmother took my brother into the hospital, and my grandpa and I were outside in the parking lot, and there was a sign that said no parking, and I don't remember exactly the typical no parking signs, and then the statement on the bottom, whatever. I didn't speak. My mom always had me in Spanish classes, so I didn't really know English, right? And I could speak it, I just couldn't read it. So he was showing me how to read word for word that stop sign, that no parking sign. Mm-hmm. And he would always tell me, mijo, because my mom only listened to Spanish music. And he would tell me, mijo, when your mom's listening to music, change it, put it in English. And his station was always like the oldies, like the 50s, 60s kind of music. Favorite. And so that's why I kind of like Johnny B. Good and music like that because of him. And whenever I come across the station, I'm scanning through the radio, I'm like, to see what's on.
Yeah.
That station.
It's music.
That station is engraved in my car because it's the station he used to listen to. And he would tell me to, obviously he wanted better for me. He wanted me to know how to read in English and to write in English. And he would tell me, when your mom's listening to Spanish, change it. I still remember my very first English album was Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Oh my God, I love that album.
Crossroads.
Yes, I cross. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that just brings back so many nostalgic
Again,
memories.
not the music he's into, but it was still in English.
Yeah, that's cool. Oh, shit, though, that's awesome. I remember. Oh my God, I had the coolest art teacher whenever that era. I was in the 7th and 8th grade. I was in junior high school during that era.
Yeah.
So like, my art teacher was the shit, man. She let us play bone, bone, bone. You know that song?
Yeah.
Oh my
Crossroads.
God. Everybody's, yeah, meet you at the crossroads. Remember?
Yep.
Oh my God, it just invokes so many memories. It's so nuts. But hey, that it reminds me too. We'll get into that too. I was a cheerleader at that time, and I remember that stupid song happened to be playing when I got injured.
Oh,
so
ouch.
Yeah, it's crazy because that was the thing. Everybody loved Bone Thugs and Harmony whenever I was growing up. Yeah. And what was it, Gangster's Paradise?
That was a
Limited. Who was
Coolio?
Yeah. Limited at Gangster's Paradise? Yeah. Oh my gosh, you just brought some. I had to go like Spotify buy some music because like I hadn't had those songs in my brain in a minute. Yeah. That's cool.
No, he was like I said, my grandpa was real good.
Awesome.
He was into like I said, oldies music and stuff like that. He would drive us to La Puente where I live now to visit his daughters. And it's funny because when I moved out here I was like, because back as a kid I always remembered my cousin. I've said it before, my cousin and her mom and my tia, whenever watermelon, I always remembered, I thought of them. So when I moved out here, my cousin's like, Andy, you live in La Puente now? I'm like, yeah, we do too. Oh, well, where's the best area to go trick-or-treating? And she goes, come down my block. Whatever number, and then Sandia. That's why I always remember them when it was a watermelon. So he always brought us out to visit visit family. He was very family oriented. Like we drove to Tehachapi, which is hours from here. We drove to wherever there was family. I remember going to a wedding in Tehachapi, and one of my tias have like a cherry tree outside, and I would eat some of the cherries. And
that's cool.
Like I said, he was like our Tio Chel and everything. Like he always took us around family, and obviously once I went back to live with my mom, that stopped because my mom's mentality was like, we're our only family.
Yeah.
My grandpa would rent a house, and then the owner would sell it, and then my grandfather was like, you know what, I can't do this anymore, and I'm just gonna. They moved to El Paso because my grandmother has family in Juarez, so he did it for her. Let's get you closer to home, pretty much.
My gosh. And
even though he had to deliver produce in California, he would drive his rig over from Texas, from El Paso to California, from California to Texas, back and forth. And
that's great. It's amazing. That was a good man. He was a good man. He was a great man. I wish that I had that type of father figure. That's what men should be in this age, is show up like that. You might not have all the riches, but to be able to take your family and create those types of memories. Look at you remembering these things, and you got a smile when you're saying these stories. You're like, I remember going to him doing this and even eating the cherries. You had a smile on your face. Those are the memories I wish we could have created. That's what families should do. And I was telling somebody, I said, for a while I wanted to make a platform and talk to women, but I see that all my followers are 95% male. And if that's my message, I'm a girl. But if my message, and if I'm going to talk to you guys, that's the kind of message. If I'm going to tell my perspective, that's Marlena vision. That is my vision. That's how a man should treat somebody. That's how my husband treats me. He might not be taking me on these fancy cruises, but he's providing for here at home, making these memories and creating those memories. That's what's important in life. And that's what we talk about it. And that's what we're going to keep saying. It is a product of your environment, how you're raised, and what you came from. And those types of memories instill good qualities in you. Like your grandfather was a great man. He taught you a lot of your love for music. I'm sorry. I was thinking, I wasn't trying to cut you off. Yeah. He taught you, he gave you a love for music. He gave you a love for those memories, for those, just those thoughts, that's cool.
He did. My brother, this is his memory. So I can only speak on it because he mentioned it to me. So when my grandmother passed away, I got to learn more about, again, my mom didn't it wasn't family, right? It wasn't. I bump into people nowadays. They're like, "Hey, you're so and so's son." I'm like, "And who the hell are you?" "Well, I'm your cousin, and I'm your cousin because of this, and blah blah blah." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." So recently, about 3 years ago, my brother Danny started coming around more often. So I get to hear his stories and stuff. He comes over and he starts like washing my car. He washed my car one day. He's like, "It's therapy for me." My grandpa used to make us help him wash his truck, his rig, And I remember one day struggling to wash one of those bolts, like for the wheel. Like, those things are big, man. So my brother's like, washing cars is a therapy for me, please. Plus, you're letting me stay in your house for a week or two.
Yeah.
Let me help out. So he will go and he clean, and all his tools when my grandmother passed away, all his tools are here. I went and bought a $300 toolbox to put his tools. They're all here. And so my brother was telling me that my grandfather didn't have a 401k. He would stash money every paycheck, $10. I recently learned that my grandfather worked and he lived paycheck to paycheck. Paycheck to paycheck. And it's funny because I then I put two and two together. When he first passed away, I was financially stressing out. And he came to a dream of mine and he told me, everything's going to be okay. And now I know why. Because he himself lived paycheck to paycheck. And I mean, years later.
Do you see your grandfather as your most influential person in your life? Like I see my grandmother.
Even though he wasn't really there, and now mentioning this, what I learned about him recently, again, that he lived paycheck to paycheck. I physically visited the little Hispanic marqueta that he delivered produce from and to and from, and I was like, this is where my grandpa worked out of, and I'm looking around like, this is a mom and pop shop, and it's like a little marquetita. It's funny because you come out the front door and there's a bridge that leads into Juarez.
Oh, wow. And I've got a lot of stories about Juarez. So it's so funny how our circle is intertwining.
Yeah. So when I heard that, when my brother Danny told me that he lived paycheck to paycheck, then, like I said, it makes sense why 8 years ago or whatever, he came to a dream and told me everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
My grandma's like, he never came to tell me shit.
It's funny. And I tell my mom that. It's crazy because sometimes I'll like, grandma comes to me in my dream and I'll say, Mom, grandma came to my dream. You better go talk to her. She said that she's not talked to you in days. She's like, I haven't been to the site in months. I said, well, she's mad at you, so you better go. Or one time I had a dream and I was like opening the truck door for her. Like I was getting her out of the truck and I was like, Grandma, where are you going? She's like, "Estoy listo para la iglesia, para vamos." And I was like, I don't go to church, but I promise you, I'm going to go read scripture. I will sing and I will worship in the shower for you because God's showing me. God comes back full circle. That's why I know He exists, because in our darkest times or in our moments of most doubt, He sends somebody, and it's not going to be Him. It's always somebody that we're comfortable with. And that's why I ask you: is your grandfather the person you're most comfortable with, like the most influential person? Because that's why I see my grandmother is, and she always comes to me in a dream, like whenever I'm at the downest moments, and I cannot be thinking about her, or I can hear her voice. Like I'll making tortillas and así no lo haces, or I can hear her say, or tienes que limpiarlo bien, mija, porque así no lo tienes, or she'll tell me, así te limpias el atrás, or so. She'll say the word, like she used to say the word. And she comes to mind a lot of times. She's that voice of reasoning, that kind of conscientious. She's my what is it, Jiminy Cricket?
I still remember the last conversation I had with him, and he wasn't very happy. One of his so what would be his Tio Chel's kid, so one of his nephews passed away, and my grandpa's like, you know what, you can have the spot next to my son, because I've changed my mind and I'm going to be cremated instead. So the spot next to my son is available if you want to have it. And so he gave him that spot, and we were the lunch or dinner after the fact, after the funeral. I was talking to my grandpa. It was just him and I in the back, and he was just kind of venting about the kids, pretty much my siblings that they lived. And he told me, mijo, Mom better hope I die first, because if she goes, I'm kicking them all out of the house. And because, you know, it goes back to how my grandma raised one of them, and my brother Danny does, you know, and I see it, you know, I see what he's talking about. Luckily, I didn't live with them throughout their teenage years, because I probably would have choked them out myself. But me, another brother. And but because my grandma, I think because my grandma, her son passed away at a very young age, that she was more of a helicopter parent towards, you know, one of our brothers, and it feels because of that it caused tensions between everybody else. So I just like I see his frustrations now of me going and visiting my grandma, you know, before she passed, and I was like, what the fuck is this? So I called my brother Danny. I'm like, Danny, did you know? Yeah. Danny, did you? Yeah. But yeah. Can I finish my sentence? He goes, no, because I already know what you're gonna tell me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I get it.
And I grew up in my grandmother's house, and I kind of know. And you know, it sucks that I know a lot of my family's secrets. I know everything because I was her gossip. I was a right-hand person. I was there. I mean, that's how I learned Spanish. Why do you think because she was gossiping with her church friends, and I was right there listening. If I wanted to know what the heck they were talking about, I better myself learn Spanish. You know? A poner el oído, como unos dicen, right? Like, what? And so I was always with her, and that comes to the point where I was always with my grandma all the time, 24/7, right there, como chicle, right there. Yeah. And I got some funny story, you know, in Spanish. Anyways, but it's I was always there, and she raised everybody, I think, uniquely, and I say that I think she carried some people higher than others. Like, she worried more about other people. So she had 12 kids, but she always had that fear. I say 10. She lost 2 at birth. My mom was a twin. She lost her brother, and then she lost another one at childbirth. And there's always been a story about that. But my grandfather, the story is that she had this child whom she named Josephine Galindo. And when she was born, my grandmother swore, because back then it was very common to have the children at home. Like, you could have the children at home, and she had the baby at home, and she swears that she heard the baby cry, and that the person who delivered the baby, the midwife or whatever, said the baby had died. And my grandmother didn't get a chance to see the baby, hold the baby. She heard the baby, they told her she died, and it was that. Nothing ever was talked about it. My grandfather was said to have buried the child, but then there was also a story that he gave the child away, that he owed somebody in California, and gave the child away. And that always had been embedded in my grandmother. So my grandma always had resentment towards him because of it. So she did, I think she held some of her children at higher regards than others. But like, we even exhumed the burial site to see if my Aunt Josephine was in that grave. And they found my mom's twin brother in the grave, and not Josephine, which is like, and you know what? Maybe through your podcast and some crazy idea, maybe Josephine is out there and she's part of our world, and you know, she's part of Brady, Texas, and you're a Galindo. You know, who knows if you're out there? Because that was a story that that was something my grandpa was very capable of doing. He was that kind of person. He was a gambler. He was a womanizer. He had one of the biggest businesses in Brady. He was a plumber. Everybody knew him. That's how I learned how to do plumbing work. Yeah. But at the same time, he was, what is it called? He was not beyond that. Like, and like we talked about being in a small town, everybody knew each other. There was debts everywhere. The police were corrupt, you know? And there's a story about my uncle, happens to be the same name as your brother. And I won't say it. Well, I'll tell you off camera, or off.
No worries.
Because the thing is they tore down the barn where the sheriff was growing marijuana plants, and they took all the marijuana plants down and drove down the main street with the plants coming out of their back of the truck. And my grandma came out and was like, "What's back there?" And my uncles were like, "Nothing." It turns out it was the sheriff's marijuana from the barn, and they had like burned down the barn. So like, our name was like, you know, and I'm probably skipping some part of that story, but that's the story I was told. I grew up on that story. My uncles were very bad into drugs. So it was like my grandma kind of went like this, you know, kind of like showing her eyes to a lot of, yeah. And that kind of brings me up to what we'll talk about next is just the shitty things happening. We grew up with a certain idea of what it was supposed to be like. The man was supposed to be this way.
Yeah.
And that's not right. Like, you grew up with a beautiful image of what a man should be. Like, your grandfather went out there and he worked. He drove from Texas to California to provide. And then you were humbled by seeing that marquita, that little bitty market, that little fruteria.
Yeah.
And you're just like, wow, I'm humbled. Because this is where he was doing all this out of and maintaining a family.
When I walked into that little market, I saw my grandfather in a different light.
Yeah.
And then when my brother Danny, because my brother Danny, I guess he did like a school project where it was like, who is your hero? And most people pick Superman, Batman, blah, blah, blah. He picked his grandfather. To him, his grandfather was his hero. And, and like I said, he tells me his stories about our grandfather now because they knew him better than I did. They lived with him more than I did. And like I said, just walking into that little market, I was like, you know what? I take back being mad at you when you yelled at me about a license plate. Yeah, I called it a placa. I called it a placa. No, I called the police officer. Oh, look, la placa. And my grandpa's like, it's a police officer. La placa is what goes around the freaking plate in your car. I'm like, sí, señor. Sí, señor.
Pinzas.
Yeah, I take it back.
Pinzas was the word for me. Do you know what pinzas are?
Yeah, I have a lot of them. So, yeah, I got to see my grandpa through like I said, like a different pair of eyes. I got to see him.
You're humbled.
Yeah, like I said, this is where he worked at. This is where he worked out of. This is a chippy little mom and pop shop. So I'm glad that my brother took me to. I mean, I gave him. We were visiting, so it was like, don't take the bus, bro. I'll take you wherever you need to go. And this is a different. My brother Albert. He was like, he's the one that took me. I got a lot of them. I got a lot of them, and a lot of them are with A's.
Well,
too.
That's the name. That's the name of the person. Yeah, that's that name gives me PTSD.
Oh, damn. Well, okay. I gave him a ride to the store, and he's the one. He's like, when we got there, he was like, yeah, this is where he worked out of. I'm like, damn. And then my brother Danny tells me he lived paycheck to paycheck, and he still provided for the family. I was like, shit, got to keep a roof over you guys' heads, living paycheck to paycheck. Again, I'm gonna repeat.
It's doable, right?
Again,
it's possible.
Now it makes sense why he came to my dream to tell me it's okay. You will be okay.
Right. That's right. So. That's right. Hard work does pay off, and providing does pay off, and doing hard work in good pays off. And you learn. I mean, look at you. I mean, you might think that your journey to get to where you are was pretty rough, but everything you did in life to get to where you are now is just setting you up for something even bigger, because your story's not over. We're in our 40s, dude. Like, my birthday is next Tuesday. I'm about to be 39. You're what, 42, 43? We talked about it.
Whoa, easy. Easy. It's funny because I went to the dentist yesterday, and the lady's like, is everything correct? I'm like, nope, not my ear. She said, what do you mean? I'm like, I wish I wasn't 82. My back says I'm 82. So I'll be 41 this year. So
I tease it. Yeah, I wanted to throw that out there.
That's okay.
But it's cool though, right? But do you see the progress in life and where we're at now as adults, seeing it now, that you can go back and reflect on that's where our change is, breaking generational curses, is being able to see that now and implement good things, good experiences with our children, so that our future generation comes out with something positive, right? And that's what I'm saying. All these little things that we saw, just even comparing stories, how it was so much different, because in the end, I'm still grateful to my grandfather because I learned the trade of plumbing. I am now studying to become an apprentice to get my master of plumber's license, because we've done it for so many years. My husband's like, we need to get our license so we could be, legit now, stop working for somebody else, and I said, you know what? I've done it so many years just by watching him, by, having to respect that. I had so much respect for the shitter.
That's good.
So I'm just saying, that comes from him. And even if he was the man he was. But you know what? That's me telling you, and that's me telling the world, is you take, and I said this last week, right? We take parts of people's experiences and implement those, right, in our lives. Even if we think that it might not work for us, or that didn't work for us, or it's not going to happen for us in the future. It's about growing and learning from those experiences. And I grew and learned from that experience, because now it's making me money. Like, I understand my grandfather saying, you're going to do the job that nobody else wants to do. you know.
I just told my son this morning that if it wasn't for what my mother put me through, I wouldn't be the person that I am today.
I want you to replay that because our last conversation was about our moms. So let me have that piece again.
If it wasn't for what my mother put me through, I wouldn't be the person I am today.
I love it.
Well, thank you for riding with me.
You know it.
No, it is. I am. You're right. You're right. But the whole calling her, your thing was we'll get past that, and pretty much I took it as
we're taking baby
steps. Do I feel that I just because I admitted to that I gotta call her right now? No.
No. We're just opening the door.
Yeah.
We're just putting the key in right now. That's all. In fact, we're not even doing that. We're just taking the deadbolt off.
Yeah.
That's all we're doing.
It's funny because
right
I use step stools as an example. I told my wife the other day, "Well, does that make you feel better about so and so?" I'm like, my foot is barely touching the bottom step stool, but then they'll do something stupid that'll make me take my foot back off.
Don't make me get down on solid ground and level.
Right?
Don't make me do that. How dare you put me back on solid ground?
Right. Well,
this
was a nice conversation, good conversation, and
good conversation in English.
The conversation.
Tell me you know where that.
Oh. It was a good conversation.
Do you know where that's from?
No.
It's a good conversation in English.
Oh, you were quoting a movie.
Yes.
No, I don't.
The Last Samurai.
Never seen it.
Oh my God, mind blown. I know you were trying to end our podcast, but you totally have to go watch Last Samurai. It's my favorite Tom Cruise movie. It's where he's an actual samurai.
Okay.
He's the last samurai, but he's a white dude being a samurai.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, and the quote of the lifetime is him talking to the guy, and he's like, "This was a very good conversation." In English. Yes.
I will watch it.
And then it'll make connections.
Before our next podcast episode, I will have watched it. Okay?
Okay.
Well, thank you for coming on again. And like I end every podcast, Marlena, thank you for riding with me.
Thank you for having me. You know, we're always still them boys.
Thank you for listening to Ride With Me, the Flat Tire Indie Podcast. You can also listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, and Podbean.